Hello guys and gals, and welcome. So they just finished the Diablo 4 developer update live stream, and I spent some time going over the developer update live stream. If you want to take a look at the full video, you're more than welcome to. I do have it cut up into chapters, so it's pretty easy to go through, and you can take a look at most of the information. But for those of you who would rather not spend, like several hours watching a live stream, I am going to, as quickly as I can, summarize all of the points that occurred during the live stream. So the first off, let's just go over the beta. I feel like the beta is the easiest one to cover. So the beta dates are 17th to the 19th for the early access, and they actually gave us some more information on that. So it is apparently going to start at 9 a.m. PST, and it will end at March 20th, not the 19th, at 12 p.m. PST. So basically, it's going to last until midday on the following day after the end of the 19th. So it's going to go for a pretty long period of time. That's basically 3 days. Not quite, but basically. The Barbarian, the Rogue, and the Sorceress are going to be the only playable classes during the early access, so we will not have access to the Druid or the Necromancer. However, in the following beta, the open beta, which is the 24th to the 27th at 12 p.m. PST, same thing, it will end at midday on the following day from the end of it, which is the 26th to that 12 p.m. the following day. Then we will have access to the Druid and Necromancer on the following week. So that's nice. They will be spawning a world boss for us during the beta. So 4 times on each Saturday, there will be Ashava, which is the world boss. And they did actually have a picture of Ashava in here, right here. This is Ashava. This is Ashava. Ashava is apparently level 25, so you're going to be recommended to be level 25 to fight her or him or whatever the hell it is. Sounds like a feminine name, Ashava. Apparently, you can have up to 12 people fighting Ashava, which is apparently groups of 4, so 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, so 3 groups of 4 to fight her together. There is going to be couch co-op, apparently, for the consoles, so look forward to that. Couch co-op sounds like fun. You can have up to 10 characters per account, according to what we've been told. Your progress during the beta will roll over to the next open beta, so if you play during the early access, it will roll over to the next part, to the open beta, but the characters that you play during the beta will not roll over to live content. Also, it's important to note that seasons apparently will not start at the beginning of Diablo 4. So when Diablo 4 launches, it's just going to be like just the regular game. And then a little bit after Diablo 4 launches, they will start the first season. And we have been told that the seasons will be substantially meatier than Diablo 3 and Diablo 2, which I responded with, that's what she said. But we shall see about that substantially meatier comment. They also stated that rune words would not be coming at launch directly, but that they would be coming eventually. They made some vague comments about how they wanted to make sure that they didn't get laughed at and ridiculed for not making the system similar to Diablo 2's system. They were very clear that anytime a system is added that is the same as a system that was in a previous game, the first thing out of people's mouths will be, but that's not the rune words from Diablo 2 Resurrected. What the hell are these? So apparently they're going to spend a little bit of time and they're going to try and perfect the rune word system for Diablo 4, which sounds like a good thing to me. They also said that ultra-wide support would be in the game, and that if you have an ultra-wide monitor, you should be fine. But they did specify that mega ultra-wide monitors, the ones that are massively wide, like probably cover your entire desk, will have black bars on the sides. So for those of you who spent a whole lot of money on your super ultra mega wide monitor, I'm sorry to tell you, you're going to have black bars. They did say that treasure goblins would be in Diablo 4. They didn't show us any pictures of them, which was sad. But I think most of us who played Diablo 3, even those of us who hated Diablo 3, would say that treasure goblins was one of the better features of Diablo 3. And I think most people will be happy to learn that they will make an appearance in Diablo 4. Trading. They talked about trading. Obviously, I don't have any pictures to show you, but somewhere around here, I think it was like right around here somewhere. Mr. Guy in the blue shirt was talking about trading, and he had some interesting things to say. The first one was trading is not going to be as restrictive as Diablo 3, which was a very wonderful thing to hear. I think most of us who've played Diablo 3 will admit that Diablo 3's trading system is absolutely garbage, and it's so restricted that you can barely do anything at all. But then he followed that up by saying that while it's not going to be as restricted as Diablo 3, it's not going to be as open as basically Diablo 2. Like, it's not going to be a fully open system, and it's not going to be a completely restricted system. It's going to be somewhere in the middle. And then he followed that up with like a comment that basically made it seem like they weren't really quite sure where it was going to fall yet, and that they may be making changes to it in the future. So we don't really know, unfortunately. But at least we know it's not going to be the Diablo 3 trading system, which I feel like is a win in my book already. They did make a comment about the WASD keys will not be working in Diablo 4, although I don't know very many people that use WASD keys in ARPGs. In Counter-Strike or, a first-person shooter, yeah, definitely. But, like, I can't think of any ARPG I've ever used WASD keys on. So I don't really think that's a big deal. They went through an armor system overview, which was pretty cool, and they talked about a lot of different things with the armor. And there were graphs and all sorts of really cool stuff as they talked about the way that armor mitigation worked. And there was kind of like an expected value. They talked about how you needed basically a certain amount of mitigation to fight certain bosses. How if you didn't have enough mitigation versus a certain boss, he could pretty much just one-shot you. They also stated that the armor system would have half to non-physical reduction. So whatever your physical reduction is, it would be half to the non-physical elements, like fire, lightning, ice, shadow, poison, whatever else is in the game. So we had some very interesting things going on here. They showed us several graphs. Among them was a graph that showed diminishing returns of armor. So as you increase in the armor, so you get more and more armor, the armor is less and less effective. So early on, the armor is like 0.045 per point, which is pretty good, and then eventually it gets down to the point where it's like 0.017 per armor point. And the higher level you get and the higher armor you get, the less effective it becomes, which is just a standard diminishing return equation. And then they also went over the fact that when you're fighting monsters that are higher level than you, there is a drop in how effective your mitigation from armor is. So, if you're like a level 30 character and you're fighting like a level 90 monster, the level 90 monster is going to wipe the floor with you because your mitigation is going to completely get annihilated. They also stated that the cap for mitigation is 85%. That's represented by the graph here at the very top. You see it's stuck right there at 85%, doesn't go any higher, and then it starts to drop as the level of monster raises higher. They did show us this really interesting footage of the Stronghold, and I'm going to play this in the background while I'm talking about it. So the Stronghold is apparently these things that you can obviously, rescue, so to speak. They're like a place that used to be, like run by NPCs or whatever you want to call it, like a little village or whatever, but they're not anymore. They've been destroyed and overrun with monsters, and you have to spend the time to clear them out and save the village, so to speak. And then once you do, they actually turn back into a stronghold, and you can use them kind of like you would a town, which is pretty cool. And this goes on for quite some time, and there's quite a bit of footage here if you want to check it out. The Barbarian playing with his arsenal system. There's some pretty cool scenes where he's jumping on top of ships and all sorts of other things, and playing around with a wagon wheel. Or the kind of one of the coolest things I saw in here while I was watching him was he picked up the wheel, and the wheel was on his back, which I thought was like really interesting. So, like, I know it's just an element of the story, but when I saw him pick up the wheel, and it appeared on his back, it was really interesting. See, he actually has the wheel on his back, the handle wheel combo thing there with the pulley on it, like, and he's carrying it to the destination, and then when he gets there, he puts it on the actual stand and uses it to complete the quest, which I thought was really interesting. It's a nice little touch that the quest item actually appears on you, that you're carrying it. They talked about a lot of different things in terms of like beta rewards. So we got some information on like titles and all sorts of other things that you could potentially have, including a very, very cute cosmetic that you can earn. So not only will you earn some very interesting titles for playing in the beta and beating relative things, but if you get a character to level 20, at least one character to level 20, you get this cute little puppy, and I just want to pet his little head. I just want to screech him like this. Him's a very cute little boy. It's a very cute. Yes, he's a very cute little puppy. Doesn't know the ghost ribbons. Little puppy here is great. It is a beta reward. I'm pretty sure you're not going to be able to get it past beta. So as long as you play in one of the betas, and as long as you get to level 20, you're going to get access to the cute little puppy that you can take around with you everywhere, which I think is just freaking adorable. I need it, okay? I need it. Specifications. So that's a very fun one. I don't know why I've waited so long to talk about specifications. Let's go back here. So they have PC specifications, and it's actually really interesting because they're pretty darn good. I was actually surprised when I read 660, GTX 660, and an i5 2500K. Like, those are pretty low-end units. I think most people are going to be okay here as far as graphics. I mean, granted, this says that settings to run Diablo 4 Open Beta at 1080p resolution, native resolution, with a 720p render resolution with low graphic settings, expecting about 30 frame rate. i5 2500K or an FX 8100, 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is like, I don't know a lot of people that have 8 gigabytes of RAM these days. I think most people are running like 16 gig these days, right? NVIDIA GeForce 660 or an AMD Radeon R9 280 is very low. We were talking about this during the live stream. You can pick up a GTX 760 or a GTX 1050 Ti, which are basically the same video card, by the way, for approximately $30. All right, $30. So you can get one generation higher than the minimum card that they're offering for $30. So if you're running lower than a 660 right now, I would just grab yourself a 1050 Ti or a 760, GTX 760 for relatively nothing and upgrade. 8 gigabytes of RAM. If you're running 8 gigabytes of RAM, I wouldn't even run 8 gigabytes of RAM at this point. I would get yourself 16. Try and grab a little bit of an upgrade there for yourself. Get yourself up to 16 gigabytes of RAM because that's like the bare minimum for most computer games these days anyway. It seems like the graphics card is limited by the DirectX 12 version. Notice that in the medium specifications, it says DirectX 12 as well. It may specifically be that the graphics card is limited to DirectX 12. I've seen this before in a couple games, where if you're using a graphics card that's not capable of DirectX 12, it has trouble playing the game, or it just won't launch at all. It'll say your video card is not capable of DirectX 12, blah, blah, blah. Like, good luck. So it could very well be a limitation of DirectX 12 itself. Another very interesting thing here is in the minimum specifications, we have a solid-state hard drive with 45 gigabytes of available space. Now, if you're still using a platter disk as your main drive or your gaming drive, I don't know what to tell you these days. For like $30, you can pick up a pretty decent solid-state drive off Amazon, and you can upgrade that bad boy. So, like, if you were running this system and you had a GTX 660 or lower, you could spend $30 on a 760 or a 1050 Ti, $30 on a solid state, and you'd be upgraded to more than the minimum specifications, and you'd be just fine. Then we have medium graphics. So medium graphics here, it says a Intel i5 4670K, and I looked this one up, and it's a little bit slower than my 3800X, so it's probably about the same as like a 3600X. So as long as you got like about a AMD Ryzen 3600X, you're probably fine. The 16 gigabytes of RAM is pretty much expected. That's pretty much par for the course these days. I'm running 32 gigabytes because I end up going over 16 gigabytes most of the time on my active use. GeForce 970 is actually like a pretty old card these days. I think we're talking about like 2014 was when that came out. So for the most part, the medium specifications aren't even really that high. AMD Radeon 370 or a GTX 970 is a pretty pretty decently low specifications for medium graphics, 1080p, 60 FPS. So if you got like a GTX 1080 or something like that, you haven't upgraded to the 20 series or the 30 series or the 40 series, which is literally there is multiple generations in between the 970, by the way. So if we take the 970 is one generation, that's 1080, two generations, that's 2080, three generations, that's 3080, four generations, that's 4080. So it is four generations away from the top card. So, I mean, as long as you got a card within the last four generations, it looks like you're pretty decent as far as Diablo 4. Again, with the solid state requirement, or rather minimum requirement, these days I think most people have NVMEs, but if you don't have at least a solid state, that's a pretty solid upgrade. Now, here at the bottom, it does say Diablo 4 will attempt to run on hardware below minimum specifications, including hard drives, dual-core CPUs, and integrated CPUs. However, the game experience may be significantly diminished. So it seems like you could at least try to run the game on a system that, is not meeting these minimum specifications. But if it doesn't work, well, it doesn't work. Then we got the Q&A section, and the Q&A section did have some interesting information in it, so I want to go over that really quickly. First off, there was a question about when will we get information on progression and in-game systems, and they basically said not during the beta. But they did say that after the beta, they were going to be having a live stream dedicated to progression and endgame systems. So after the beta is over, we will get another live stream going over some of the more endgame stuff. Another one of the questions that they asked was, is there a limit to the number of people you can see in the open world? To which we got the response that they were almost deliberately limiting the number of people that we could see in the open world because they wanted the game to feel desolate and abandoned, which has me a little bit worried, especially when we got to the point where we were talking about a specific quest, and he replied with, well, the only people that you're going to be able to see are the people that are in your group. So you're basically not going to be able to see anybody as you're just roaming around the world, which is a little strange. It's completely the opposite of the way an MMO works, right? Because MMOs are more focused on letting you see everybody. Like, hey, look, there's like 30 people on this quest. Let's group up and, let's do the quest together. And that way we don't have to, split all the resources. But it doesn't seem like that's the way they want things in Diablo 4. They did talk about how there will be specific situations where you'll see more people on the screen than others. Like, for instance, world bosses. You're obviously going to be able to see more people there during a world boss battle. And then on top of that, they talked about how in town you're going to be able to see everybody because in town, basically, like, all of the players will load in and you can show off your loot. They also asked a question about the trading system, and I did talk about that already, but it was really vague of an answer. They basically said it wasn't going to be Diablo 3, but it wasn't going to be Diablo 2, and it was going to be somewhere in between. And then we also got a couple more questions about some other, like, odd things in the game which didn't really match up. They talked about the Inaria statue, by the way. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. The Inaria statue is apparently up for pre-order, or if you want to check it out. They have the Lilith statue on there as well, and I mean, if you want to get the statues, they are kind of cool, I'm not going to lie. Then they went over achievements, and they talked about how there will be an achievement system within the game and challenges that you can do. That is going to be something that will be within the game. And then finally, to wrap up the stream, there was apparently a charity event where if one team won over the other, they could pie the other team. And apparently, Rod lost. So Rod ended up getting pied. And we have a replay of Rod getting pied here.
2, 1.
He really rubs it in. He rubs it in really good.
Rubbing it in.
And it was a pretty good dev stream. All in all, we learned some very good bits of information. I'm kind of disappointed about the 4 players in the party. I hope that helps you guys out, so you don't have to watch the entire live stream. But if you do want to watch the entire live stream, I was hilarious the entire time, pretending to be one of the statues, which they then pointed directly at me, which I thought was funny. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.